season. The head coach, Brent Thompson, joining me tonight. I'm Luke Morrow here on the Coaches Show that is coming to you live via the interwebs this evening. Moving forward, we'll be back on the radio and, of course, also socially distanced as well. So a couple of different looks this evening for our first Coaches Show of 2020. But just like Citadel football is happening, so too is this show. And we'll spend the next hour talking about what we saw Saturday down in Tampa. Get ready for the game upcoming this Saturday against Clemson. And just break down what it's been like these last few months to get ready for this 4-game sprint here in the fall. As we, of course, are joined by the coach tonight, Coach Brent Thompson. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. At home here at Cygnus Hall, a little bit of a difference here for us. But we're going to make the best of it like we do everything else. And I appreciate you coming out and joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's my pleasure. Appreciate the time. Let's start at the very beginning of this all, because this is the first time we're sitting down and doing this, and this has been such an odd, unusual 2020 for really everyone involved, sports, people's personal lives, the like. What has it been like these last 6 months as the coach of a college football program trying to navigate a pandemic while also trying to play some sort of games here in the fall?
Yeah, well, if you go all the way back to spring football, this really kind of hit us right at the week after spring football hit or ended. We went right into spring break, and when you were coming out of spring break, we were saying, this is going to be a 2-week deal. We're going to get this thing over with. Go home, take your stuff, take your books with you just in case you don't come back, and we'll see how this thing plays out over spring break, and then we'll get one more week, and then we'll kind of be back together. We'll be back ready to train here in April. Well, as we all know and as we found out, it was bigger than what we had originally been told or what we had thought. And the next thing you know is we were gone for the whole semester. And the hardest thing about that was you couldn't even come back together. You couldn't come back together as a staff. You couldn't come back together as a team. You couldn't come back together in any which way. You had to stay at home. And we really had to do everything that we possibly could. I didn't even know what Zoom was until about a week after spring break, and so immediately your plan changes, and it's been an evolving and changing plan ever since that. Anything that you had on paper, anything that you really knew what you were going to do or how you were going to do it is changed, and you had to really change your whole approach to life at that point. And your whole approach to life was, hey, I'm going to take this thing one day at a time. I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to put a plan together. If I've got to adjust that plan, it's not the end of the world. All right. If I've got to adjust it here and there, but at least just let's get through it. So the staff put a plan together of we were going to, number one was take care of our players. Academics were the most important thing. We live in a structured environment here. They're used to having people that are accounting for them 24/7. They're used to being and going to a class. They're used to having academic advisors here. So we spent the whole 3 or 4 weeks leading up to finals just monitoring our players and giving them the support and structure that they needed. So we would check in 2 to 3 times a week. We would have them check in with their professors, with our academic counselors, with our coaches, and anything that they needed structurally, we had to facilitate that. The second thing that we had to do really was do recruiting. And we did all of our recruiting online. So we are way ahead in recruiting as far as evaluation is concerned because we didn't get any time on the road. We didn't have to, navigate too many things here on campus. We lost all of our training in the spring. So everything between the months of March, halfway through March, April, and May was just all strictly recruiting. Once the May kind of hit and finals hit and everything, I gave the staff a little bit of time to just break away and relax, and we stayed home for the most part. But we would only check in about once or twice a week instead of every single day like we were doing during the spring semester. That really took us all the way through the month of June, and then when July hit, we started to get back to a little bit of normalcy. What we really wanted to do was start to reconvene and get our guys at least in training. At the time, in South Carolina, the numbers were still pretty good. Right at the end of June and the beginning of July, right when we almost really opened back up the weight room, is things started to explode on us down here. And unfortunately, we went through that whole phase as well, where we had opened up the weight room to 15. We had trained. We had been training outside. We've been training inside. We had been doing about 3 or 4 cycles of 15 guys at one time. And then we got hit with our own little outbreak here that shut us down for a good solid, I think it was about 16 or 17 days. And The scary thing about that is you're losing 16 or 17 days that you're usually training, acclimating to the heat. We also lost a whole training session, and we lost our whole summer session with our freshman class, which is a 4 to 5 week program. So they're a little bit behind. Our upperclassmen were behind. And leading all the way through the month of July is all the unknowns. The number one thing that we really wanted to do as a staff was start to put some of our own protocols in place, as if we were going to have players in Signius Hall beyond the weight room, is we started to have to clear out some of the things and socially distance around here as best we could. If you look into our team room, just in the next room over, it went from 120 seats to 40 seats. If you go into some of the smaller meeting rooms are completely shut down. The 2 staff rooms right now can hold about 5 or 6 socially distanced out. Everything in the lobby, if you come up here to the lobby where we are right now, there's usually some couches and some chairs. Everything's been cleaned out of here as well. So that was the number one thing that we had to do, was how are we going to operate, and then how are we going to operate and bring kids into the building safely. The locker room was the next thing. We even had to go through and rethink how we did the locker room. Kevin Yeager, our equipment guy, Will Christopher, and I, we all got together and we decided this is the best thing to do is probably to go offense, defense, and mix up all the lockers. The locker room capacity was cut down to 60. So we can go, we've got 120 lockers in there. We were essentially operating at half capacity there. So how are we going to plan practices? How are we going to get guys in to get taped and dressed? How are they going to get out to get showered, with another section of guys being out on the football field? So everything that we knew how to operate a football program had to be rethought. The offense defense in there was every other locker, so that way they were socially distanced as much as they could in the locker room. Mm-hmm. So what we ended up doing was we would end up bringing the offense out early or the defense out early, and then cutting whichever group was out early, cutting them off the field a little bit earlier by about 30 minutes. And we're still continuing to operate that way. It makes practice a little bit more harder to plan. It makes practice time because you're crossing over with your scout teams differently. You're crossing over with special teams differently. So everything that you were accustomed to doing has changed. But as I sat down and I told the staff, is first of all, it's making us better. It's making us better leaders, better coaches. There's going to be a few things that we're going to carry over to a normal year. There's going to be things that we liked. I mean, obviously, there's certainly things that cut into some of your time. But really, we've made our time so much more efficient. There's certain things that, getting players off the field at some time a little bit earlier helps us out, right? We'll be a little bit fresher at times. So everything that we possibly had to do just to get to a point to practice had to be thought out, planned out. Typically my camp schedule is planned in the month of May and June. That was completely, I had planned it all the way out. I had it out for a normal traditional year, and I had to rethink it, and we had to redo that in about a week. Put together a plan between how were we going to run team times, how you can't bring guests on campus, so how are you going to run and operate that just as the group? We can't meet as a full team. There's a 40, we have 120 seat that's cut down to 40 seats, so we had to go over to McAllister Fieldhouse and do all of our team meetings over there. Some of our meeting room space was cut out, so we had to go over to McAllister. We've been using Days Hall. Campus has been very generous with us to be able to accommodate and help us out, so we appreciate everybody working together and everybody understanding that it's just an abnormal time. We've got to do the best that we possibly can. And as Andy Clausen would tell me, you just got to have a sense of humor.
Certainly. And I know, as you just laid out, a lot goes into this. Through the adjustments and the distancing and the changes, what has been the biggest obstacle just from a football standpoint as the head coach getting ready while having to adjust and change and handle all those things? Yeah,
well practice time. So we're given a block of time from about 4 to 6. Mm-hmm. We really have to get off the field by about 6:15 or so just to get ourselves to the mess hall in time without stressing other portions of campus. So we've been given that block of time. Well, in that block of time, we would traditionally, and we still do, really have to try to meet for about 40 minutes. Well, we're cut down in half, so we've got to meet one side of the ball for 40 minutes, and the other side's getting taped and dressed, and then flip-flop those and get guys in and out of there. So you're really adding hours to your day but you're not adding hours to your practice time as far as players are concerned, because the players will be out there for a shorter amount of time, but coaches could be out there longer. I'll typically be out there with both groups. I'll be out there, what I would typically be out there for a 20-period practice, I'm out there for about a 28, 30-period practice. That's a long day. It's a long day of being on your feet and being out there, but it's what you got to do to get the job done. The crossover time between scout teams was a little bit challenging at first. I think we've fallen into a rhythm where we can get about 6 periods, which is about 30 minutes or so of scout team time. Typically, we would get about eight periods total, so we're only cutting about 10 minutes out of that. We can do a little bit of interaction. Not a whole lot of interaction. We can do about 10 minutes. We do a scaly period together, a 7-on-7 period together, and maybe a third down and third and long period together. Some certain days we can do that stuff. And then special teams. So all in all, you're out there together, 6 periods by yourself, 6 periods with a scout team out there, 3 to 4 periods with the special teams. That's about 10 periods. So you're out there by about an hour and 15 minutes together in an hour and 45-minute practice. So that's been challenging, dealing with that. And then all the other obstacles that come. Well, today was one of those days. We had a thunderstorm. We had lightning in the area. Now you can't pile 120 kids into your locker room. You got to space them out, all 120 kids in Signius Hall. Then you got to figure out a way to get in and out of practice time. So everything's constantly being adjusted. The best thing that's going out there is every one of the support staff and the current staff, they understand that you're just going to have to change things and you're going to have to make do, and everybody's got to be flexible, which football coaches, and we're not inherently flexible at all. We like to control what we can control out there. But when you have days like this is the 3rd or 4th day. We've lost 2 practices because of thunderstorms just before the South Florida game. We were delayed a little bit today, so I don't think in the 5 years, and trust me, we've had 4 hurricanes, 1 pandemic. This thing is it's keeping you on your toes quite a bit, a little bit more than a hurricane. The hurricane's in and out on you, but this is one of those deals.
Yeah, I could imagine, and we will focus on that South Florida game in just a moment, but a couple more broad questions about what it's been like. Crisis can present opportunities, and you mentioned that there may be some things that you're doing through this that maybe you do keep moving forward. Have you found that some of the changes that have come through this, maybe some of the smaller changes, are things that you actually do like and could continue to do moving forward even once we get back to normal?
Yeah, some of the things that we've just done as a staff, and here, some of our staff meeting, they have changed a little bit. I've tweaked just some of our schedule a little bit to help us out as far as relieving some of the pressure in certain areas, because what ends up happening is you end up being here for such an extended amount of time, being that one side of the ball is just here about 30 minutes longer than the other side of the ball. So you try to relieve some of the staff pressure on that end. We may come in a little bit later. We may try to accommodate some of the coaches there just to give them a little bit of a break, because it's been a stressful time. Leading up to the game week was the most stressful time probably. 3 months of just not knowing. It was very, very stressful for our players. Then once you get to camp, and we had about 30-something guys that didn't show up to camp. We had to probably adjust a lot of things during that time. As we didn't we didn't do any interaction for the first 5 days of camp. We didn't do anything beyond. I think we got into shells or helmets and shoulder pads day 4, day 5, somewhere in there. We would typically be in full pads at that point. So we slowed down because of our players weren't in the conditioning shape that they typically would be with a traditional summer. We didn't have all of our players. We had a lot of young guys getting a lot of work out there. But that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for those guys, and those guys have benefited from it. Every single one of those guys got a lot more coaching than they traditionally would. And it ended up working out okay for us, because we went from a 25-day prep to about a 29-day prep. So it gave us about an extra 4 or 5 days to prep for the South Florida game, even though we didn't know we were playing South Florida until about 3 weeks out.
You mentioned that South Florida game. I'm sure after all of that, after everything you went through, must have felt good to just, even for just 3 hours, worry about a football game, get out there, actually play someone else, and go kick off the football this past Saturday down in Tampa.
It was really cool. First of all, being in an NFL stadium was neat, even though there was no fans in there. What I realized, and this is what we talked about as a staff, is at some point I think we're just going to forget that there's even fans at a game. We're going to focus so much on the game and what's going on that you won't even notice. And they did a good job. They did a good job with the crowd noise and the music and everything else to give it at least the feel of a game, and that way you couldn't hear the other side. yelling at their players and barking out signals and everything like that. So I thought that was good. You're right, it was probably the most relaxing. It felt the most normal. Flying to a game was pretty cool for our players, right? But once you got to the hotel, things operated fairly normally. The hotel was very quiet. Our players did a good job of, operating as they would typically on campus, masks on, socially distanced, all that kind of stuff. But that was about as normal as we get. Pre-game routine was fairly normal for us. Get out there and play, and I think at that point we just said, let's just settle in and let's play. Took a deep breath, settle in and let's play.
You mentioned the crowd noise, the music. As you get going, once you kick it off, did that seem normal enough? Did it seem like that place was filled, or did it stand out to you? Yeah.
No, it did. I didn't notice it. I thought they did a good job of not playing it too loud. They did a good job of not interfering with the signals. Everybody, and I got to hand it to Coach Scott because he had called me. It was actually strange. He sent me a text on Wednesday, and I never had received a text from another head coach, especially an FBS head coach. And it was like, Coach Thompson, hope all's well, going well with your team. Just got a few pre-game and post-game things that I'd like to talk to you about. Jeff Scott, South Florida. And I'm like, man, this guy's, I was like, I don't know. It seems like somebody's spoofing me or something. So I was like, this is not normal. I sat in my house, I looked at it, and I was like, man, maybe I should just give this guy a call. I don't know. So I don't know what they're trying to get at. So I had to look up the number. It was a Tampa number. Called him back. He was great. We had a great conversation. We talked a little bit about the protocols. We talked about how we were going to handle pregame, kickers and that thing, exchanging sides, if we were okay with it. I said, yeah, not a problem there. How we were going to handle crowd level noise, how we were going to handle music, how we wanted to handle post game and all that kind of stuff. But it was great. I think he had a good understanding for the situation we were in. I had a great understanding for the situation we were in. At that point, we were just both happy to play football.
I can imagine. And Coach Scott in his 30s, that's how us millennials handle things. We just send a text instead of getting on the phone. So I guess Coach Scott doing the same thing. Was there any point up until kickoff on Saturday, go back to when the Southern Conference made their decision, go back to when this all started, was there at any point through all this that you sat there and thought, man, I don't know if we will be playing any football this fall?
For the first time in my career, in my 21 years, and well, not all 21 years did I have one, but I kept my cell phone with me on the field. And I typically don't like to do that. I don't like to be bothered on the field. But I had it on the field for my first about 7 or 8 practices out there, waiting for something to happen, the other shoe to drop. So many teams were dropping. My buddy's the head coach up there at Elon, and he was with us. We're like, at least we got that game. We're going. The SoCon was late to drop, so at least we got that. Trying to keep everybody motivated, continue to move forward, even though you started to see dominoes fall, boom, 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 and then the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and that one really, it was like a dagger in you at that point, and you could sense it just deflated our players, and trying to keep those guys motivated and pushing through it was very, very challenging. And my capacity of the AD and I had a lot of conversations throughout those 2 weeks of what are we going to do, how are we going to do. The best thing that I kept on getting from him was General Walters he's committed to playing. He's committed to playing. I knew that I had to keep the players moving forward, and that was hard. As soon as when our schedule dropped out, that was the most difficult time. At that point, I finally had to say to the players, listen, we are moving forward. All right, it has been our stance ever since this started. We were the one of 3 teams that voted to play this year out of the SoCon. We're going to find games. All right, we were committed. Mike was committed to finding games. Jeff Von Dolen was committed to finding games, and of course, General Walters was committed to competing and giving our players a chance to compete. And he met with us on 2 different occasions. As a full athletic staff, to be able to reiterate that and really reinforce what his thoughts were, and I thought that was awesome. Once we heard it from him, I can convey that to the players, I can convey that to the staff, that listen, we're going to do everything that we possibly can. We're going to try to meet all the protocols. Now listen, the protocols came out very late. We were into camp when the protocols came out, and now you got to scramble. You got to put a lot on your administration to be able to pull off what we've pulled off. And just in the last 3 weeks, we've been tested 6, 7, 8 times here. We're scheduled to be tested another time on Friday. We just got tested today. We were tested on Sunday. To be able to pull that off with outside agencies and to be able to get what we need, very, very difficult, very challenging. But giving our players the opportunity to play, especially here at the Citadel, where that's what these guys love to do. They come here to do that. They come here to benefit from an outstanding education. They come here to benefit from everything that we can give them in a Division I football program. And then on top of it, you get to play Army, you get to play South Florida, you get to go against the #1 team in Clemson, and then you have a home game, which is awesome for our kids to be as close to normal as possible with ring weekend. I don't know that you could ask for anything more out of your school.
Yeah, and I'm certainly excited for all these games. So let's talk about the South Florida game. Your takeaways from that game. Obviously, 27-6 was the final score. First game of the year, going up against an FBS program, a 2-score game into the fourth quarter. What were your takeaways, just broad takeaways, after you saw your team's first performance this past Saturday?
Well, number one, I don't ever fault their effort out there. I thought they gave tremendous effort out there. And if we work backwards from the fourth quarter, we had a young Lane Botkin was a 3-year punt returner for us. We have a young freshman back there, and really this is going to be hugely beneficial for him. He fielded every single punt besides that one that he possibly could. That one was difficult. I watched the thing twist and turn up in the air up there. Muffed the punt, went to the other team right there. I mean, that's a huge letdown. We had just gotten off the field on fourth down, or on third down to go on a fourth down, and now we got to put the defense back out there. Well, they come out and they actually pushed them back even further. That right there proved to me that, hey, man, these guys were still playing their butts off. Throughout the course of the game, I thought we really, really had opportunities that we missed offensively. There's no question about it. And it boiled down to this for the guys was we're turning the ball over way too much. We had 2 opportunities to be able to put the ball in the end zone. We had another opportunity to be able to continue a drive. One was 2 personal foul penalties. One, Raleigh just slid his hands up too high, got the personal foul right in the red zone for us. We're feeling good about that drive. We're moving it into about the 10-11 yard line, and then we moved it all the way back, and we had to kick the field goal on that one, and that hurt. We had another opportunity where we had everything blocked up, ready to go. Dropped the pitch, and Kiefa's just first time going out there and playing. Done an outstanding job all single day. Just he took his eyes off the pitch right there. We had an opportunity to score on that drive. Unfortunately, that set us back. First drive of the game, I thought we were about a 7 or 8 play drive. Logan Brought's in there. Gets his first carry in there, and it pops out. The guy did a good job, put his hand right on the ball, was able to rip it out, but we had a 4-yard gain on it. That was a first down, right around the 38, 40-yard line, somewhere in that range, and we're moving the football. So we deflated ourselves there, and we couldn't get a great rhythm going in the third quarter, and we lost a little bit of time possession in the third and the fourth quarter. But defensively, here's what shows out up there is they've got tremendous speed and space. They're very athletic. They've got guys that we would love to have as A-backs. They're smaller, very quick guys. I think they're loaded with some of those guys. And then their quarterbacks. Their quarterbacks can make you miss in a phone booth as well. I thought we did a good job in the pass game against them. Obviously, when they scramble out of the pocket, that's when we kind of get exposed in a little bit of space right there. We had to try to keep them in confined spaces. The number one thing that was throughout the day for us was the penalties, the turnovers, and then the field position. If you look at the average field position throughout the whole game, they were at the -35. We were at the -23. So you're giving up a whole first down there, and you're asking yourself to drive the whole length of the field and make 0 mistakes. And unfortunately, that was very difficult for us to do. We've got to get better at that. And hopefully this time around, when we've got guys that at least have got 1 game under their belt in the backfield, we'll be much improved in that area.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the errors, the mistakes, the fumbles, the penalties, and you take those out, and maybe that's a big if. That's a lot of times what decides football games. But if you remove some of those things, it was a 21-point game only. It was just a 2-touchdown game into the fourth quarter, a 1-point game there in the first half. And outside of some of those errors, it looked like your Bulldogs certainly held their own against an FBS program on the road without the full roster while dealing with this pandemic. I know they say there's no such thing as moral victories, but after everything you went through, first game of the year, on the road against South Florida, I'm sure there's plenty of positives that you saw from your guys on Saturday.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, Luke, was this. I came back in on Sunday, and I said, look, I said, I know this was not the outcome that we all thought, because I thought we had a good chance, and we all believe we could beat that. And I do think is if we played them a couple times, we would get some wins against those guys. We would do things a little bit differently. I know offensively we would do things a little bit differently against them. Being that it was a new staff, I had no idea what the defense coordinator was going to run. We had to prepare for about 3 or 4 things. They ended up running one of those things, but it wasn't completely focused on one thing. So I do think that there was a lot of positive that they adjusted to it well. They did exactly what I asked them to do. I thought if at the end of the day we got to look at it this way, was we're playing, right? We're getting better. And all those guys, especially the guys in the backfield, the younger guys in the backfield that are just getting their first game experience, that's going to help us out. If indeed we do play in the spring, we're going to be that much better in the spring, right? We'll be that much deeper in the spring. We'll have all these practices underneath our belt. We're going to have all these competitions. And we all know we're playing a division up right now, and we're all perfectly good with that. I would schedule more FBS games for all I care. All right, that's not my point. My point is, hey, whatever we do right now, whoever we play is going to make us better. And when we move on and if we get an opportunity to play in the spring, hey, we're going to be that much deeper. We're going to be that much more prepared to play a game because we have actually been there. And we're going to be a good football team. And we're going to be a football team that's going to be well experienced and seasoned.
We'll continue to break down this game at South Florida. First, we do have to take a quick break, but I do want to tell you, Citadel fans, that we would like to thank Kelly Tours for being the official transportation provider for Citadel Athletics. Kelly Tours is a proud sponsor of Citadel Athletics and your premier provider of group travel in the Low Country. Kelly Tours helping making this all possible tonight. We'll take a quick break, come back with the coach, and continue to talk about what we saw Saturday from the Bulldogs against South Florida right after this on the Citadel Sports Network.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005. I went to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once. She's the culprit that ripped our door off. 2,000-pound animal bumping into a steel door creates quite a bit of damage. I actually use the app, take pictures of it right there for USAA, and they take care of the rest. USAA is great about working with both active and separated military. I'm Josh Eilers, and I'm a USAA member for life.
Call USAA today to talk about your insurance needs.
Since 2002, the lottery has helped award more than 1 million scholarships. So when you play, you're not just taking a chance. You're also giving one.
Back on the Coaches Show here with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, as we are recapping the game from this past Saturday against South Florida. Get ready for the upcoming game this Saturday against Clemson. And before we get back to doing so, I do want to tell you that Hotel Indigo is only a bridge away from Charleston, and that's your hotel that features modern amenities, luxury rooms, meeting space, great bar and grill. So be sure to give them a call or visit them at mountpleasantlyindigo.com. Proud sponsor of Citadel Athletics. All right, talking about this South Florida game from Saturday, where the Bulldogs fell 27-6 Saturday night down in Tampa, breaking it down with the coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. And, Coach, let's talk about certain players, certain things that happened. We know for many people that didn't watch the game or just average sports fans, maybe the big takeaway was the highlight they saw with Matt Campbell and that punt in the end zone. He did come back finished the game strong. We know he's one of the best punters in FCS football. Any concern with how Matt would, handle that being tweeted and being posted about as he gets ready to continue on playing this fall?
No, I really didn't. I didn't even think twice about it. I don't think Matt really even thought twice about it. He's actually handled it very well. Matt's he's an intelligent, he's an engineer here. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows exactly what's going on. There was no concern. There's been no concern. I don't really like to burden those kickers with kind of that stuff. I want to kind of just, let's move on, right? Mm-hmm. We got to be like golfers, man. We just got to move on to the next shot. We got to move on to the next kick. And I think he's handled it perfectly well. And in fact, I think he's going to be better off for it at the end.
Speaking of special teams, you had a freshman kicker, Colby Kintner, who went out there and hit 2 field goals, almost knocked through the third one. How impressed were you with what you saw from the freshman in his debut?
Yeah, my biggest concern. And when we trotted out there for the first kick, I knew it was just, I shouldn't say I knew, I thought it was going to be slightly out of his range. His inside of the 30, I thought we would be okay with him. Outside of the 30, I thought it was hit or miss. He came through and banged it down, and I was shocked. Once he hit it and I saw it come off his foot, I was like, he hit that one pretty good because leading up to that point, he had a really good week leading up to the South Florida game. But the weeks prior to that, I think he was struggling a little bit with his swing and his motion. But he got it under control. He's got a very strong leg. Was not extremely accurate leading in the beginning, and we would try to apply as much pressure as we possibly could. Even though there was no fans out there, I thought the pressure of the moment could impact him at that time, and it didn't. Even the third one was very, very close.
Your A-backs, and I think you alluded to this earlier, but we know about the youth, the inexperience there at the A-back position. What did you see from that group Saturday night? And for most of them, their first time playing in a game, handling the football, playing that position.
Yeah, it was challenging. I was a little bit nervous about that going in there, and those are the guys that I coach. Is Cooper Wallace, played quarterback up until the first day of camp this year. Tremendous runner, hard runner, good blocker out there. He's got really good ball skills. He's overall good football player. I knew he would adapt and adjust, and he had 4 carries out there, but I do like it when he has the ball in his hands. He's a downhill runner. I think he's going to get physical, tough yards in there. There's no question. Keith White is a guy that's been around, knows exactly what to do. Hasn't had the opportunity because he's had Dante in front of him and he's had Nakim in front of him, but and Keontae, of course. So he's paid his dues. He's been around quite a bit. I think he did an excellent job out there. Took a lot of the reps out there. Got his first taste of what it's like to carry the football, get physical, tough yards, and then block guys that are actually different than scout team players that were fairly athletic out there as well. And then Derek Hampton. Derek has played quarterback for us. He was a local kid from Goose Creek here, played quarterback in high school, understands the offense. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got a lot of quick burst skills. Did a good job. He just needs to work a little bit on his blocking area, but other than that, he's got good hands and he can do it. This is going to help us. It's going to help us in the future. It's going to help us gain depth. And then we'll be happy to have Keontae back this week.
And the veteran of the backfield, Clay Harris, sustained an injury early on, so you didn't have him very long. How's he looking in terms of getting ready for this weekend?
He's going to be probably a game-time decision at this point. Didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today. Maybe an emergency use possibility. He's not going to be too far off at this point, we think. But, yeah, unfortunately, Clay went in there for one play, and that's all it took. One play, one opportunity, and the next thing you know is we had to put Logan back in there. We were trying to spell those two guys in and out, being that the B-back spot can be very physical and challenging. So that's a little bit of a concern for us right now. But we've had at one time we were about 4 or 5 deep there. Well, we're getting down to that to the depth right now.
Now, you mentioned Logan. He's another player that you've moved into that backfield, and he did have that fumble on his first carry, but he came back and was running hard the rest of the game. What did you see from him at the B-back position Saturday?
Good, tough, solid runner, and knows he's one of the smartest players out there. We just moved him over. Never really played fullback. He was a linebacker. Had my eye on him, just saying, hey, if we ever needed to bolster or build our depth, we brought him over and did such a good job in camp that we thought he'd be the best thing to be the starter there, and give us a solid guy that can go out there and do what we ask him to do. Ran hard, ran physical in there, and did exactly what we asked him to do in there. I just wished he would have taken care of the ball in that first drive, but sometimes you just got to get that out of your system too.
I know you brought up the defense earlier. I mean, again, to stress, on the road, FBS program, and take away the special teams, the defense only surrendered 20 points in that game. How pleased were were you with what you saw from that side of the football?
Yeah, the only thing that was a concern there were the missed tackles. And a couple things, right? They're very athletic. They got us in a little bit of space. We had them bottled up at times. We need to do a better job of just pursuing to the football, tackling the hip, and being able to get those guys on the ground when we have opportunities. Other than that, we did a heck of a job. We were stingy. We didn't always let them in the end zone. The one fade ball that he threw an outstanding fade ball. The kid made a great catch in there. The other one was a little bit of a drive, I should say. They had a big play. If you look at it, I believe it was 8 plays for 290 yards. Other than that, those were the big plays. They were explosive. And when it came down to it, they were the most explosive team on the field at that time. Would we have liked to have had more explosive plays? Well, we had the 2 by Raleigh with about 2 25-yard gains there. But other than that, we're going to be a fairly methodical, move it down the field kind of a team. So therefore, we can't have the penalties and we can't turn the football over.
You mentioned tackling. We've seen across football, NFL, college football right now, some lackluster tackling so far. Has that been a product of not being able to get out there and get ready like a normal season and maybe be able to hit guys as often as you have because of this pandemic and all the changes?
Yeah, we're a fairly physical and contact team, as I believe that it's like anything else. It's like strength and conditioning. It's like acclimation is tackling is you've got to get used to it. First of all, you got to get used to contact, number one. Number two, you got to get used to tackling live guys that actually move in space out there. And that can be very, very challenging. And this year we may have had somewhere about 4 or 5 live practices leading up into that. Some of it was depth, some of it was conditioning, some of it was just the timing of things. Things just weren't working out well for us at the time. But we did have 2 live scrimmages that we did probably about what we would typically do. The first scrimmage was 35 plays each side of the ball, so it was about over 70 plays for the 1s and the 2s. The second scrimmage was over 100 plays there, so we tried to get between 100 and 120 plays to get about 60 to 65 on each side of the ball there. We got close to that, not as many as we would typically get. And then we would have a couple more live half-line periods sprinkled in there a little bit that we didn't get this year that may have affected us a little bit.
First game under your belt. As we've touched on, some things you'd like to clean up. The problem is now you look ahead and you want to get those things cleaned up, but have to do so against the number 1 team in the country, against Clemson. I know your program, you never back down from any sort of challenge, but looking ahead now to the next game on Saturday coming up, Clemson, what's the outlook as you get ready for the best team in the country?
Yeah, well, we've got to focus on ourselves and do, like you said, is if we were to go out there and not turn the ball over and not get the penalties and be able to get off the field a little bit, and that would be a huge win for us, right? That would be a lot of improvement for us. I think it would also help us compete at their level as well, which is what I talked about earlier on in the week. Is we're going to have to compete at their level as we did at Alabama, as we did at Georgia Tech. They're extremely talented. That'll be very, very difficult. That'll be challenging for us because they're very, very deep, especially on the defensive line. I mean, shoot, you look at the running backs and the quarterbacks and the skill guys as well. On the offensive side, those guys, they roll 2 and 3 deep at a lot of those spots. But it's still a game. It's still an opportunity for us to get better. It's still an opportunity for us to go out there and compete on that level, which our guys never, ever back down from. And as you said, I mean, shoot, this is the 3rd or 4th number 1 team in the country that we've faced since I've been here. So it's a great opportunity for us, man. We love these games.
Yeah, the Citadel has played the number 1 team more often than any other FCS program. And you go back to that Florida State game, that's the second closest a team has gotten to the number 1 program. And then, as you mentioned, the Alabama game tied at halftime, almost took the lead in the second half, took over the college football world that week. So now as you get ready to take on another number 1 team, those are numbers, those are rankings. We know Clemson's really good. Does it change anything from a preparation standpoint or your messaging or how the players look at it, the difference between playing just an FBS program or playing the number 1 FBS program?
Well, it does. I mean, I said right at the beginning of the week, I said this is an opportunity. We're going to have the opportunity to go and play the number 1 team in the country. We're going to go ahead and see exactly what that's like. And, hey, if they end up number 1 at the end of the year, we played them. All right, and we're going to give them our best shot, and we'll let the chips fall where they may, but we'll be fine.
We'll continue to get ready for that Clemson game coming up after a quick break. But first, do want to remind you about Ledford's. Do you have some pests that have become unwanted house guests? Call Ledford's Termite and Pest Control to take care of you and send those bugs out of town. Ledford's is a proud sponsor of Citadel Athletics. We'll get ready for the game Saturday against the Clemson Tigers when we come back with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, right here on the Coaches Show on the Citadel Sports Network.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005. I went to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once. She's the culprit that ripped our door off. 2,000-pound animal bumping into a steel door creates quite a bit of damage. I actually use the app, take pictures of it right there for USAA, and they take care of the rest. USAA is great about working with both active and separated military. I'm Josh Eilers, and I'm a USAA member for life.
Call USAA today to talk about your insurance needs.
Since 2002, the lottery has helped award more than 1 million scholarships. So when you play, you're not just taking a chance. You're also giving one.
Back on the Coaches Show here with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Brent Thompson, as we get ready for the game Saturday against Clemson. First, do want to remind you that Ace Glass is your trusted local experts for all of your glass needs. And Fred Price Jr., Citadel class of 75 and family have been proudly serving South Carolina since 1939. Located in Columbia, Irma, and Lexington, or online at aceglasssc.com. Getting ready for Clemson this Saturday, 4 o'clock kickoff. Coverage will begin at 3 o'clock on the Citadel Radio Network this Saturday. And, Coach, as we've already touched on, not only the games against number 1 teams, but the games against Clemson. What do you remember from the last time you took on Clemson back in 2017?
Well, hopefully I don't remember a whole lot, but, it was burned in my head. That was a rough one. It was I had, first of all, the team speed. Second of all, the quarterback could throw the vertical ball as good as anybody that I've seen. The ball was, I remember one in the end zone, and we were in great position. I think it was Tyus Carter was in great position. He tips the ball in the end zone, and it goes right into the Clemson guy's hands. We couldn't have played it any better than that. And I think that was right before the half. So it was one of those days for us. It was very challenging for us. We had our opportunities to be able to at least get close to the red zone. Unfortunately, I believe we only kicked a field goal that day, but it was not one of those games that you'd like to remember.
This Saturday, you have to deal with this version of the Clemson Tigers led by Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, 2 top 5 Heisman candidates. When you go up against players like that, this roster is almost like pick your poison. How do you try to stop a team that has 2 stars like that in both aspects on offense?
That's a question that I would really have to ask Tony because I don't even think he would want me to ask that question to him. And I've avoided it with him for the most part because I understand the challenges. Because I did watch, not only is the starting quarterback very good, but so is the backup quarterback. Not as only is the starting running back very good, so is the backup running back very good. And they do as good of a job up front as anybody. I think they've got a tremendous offensive line and skill positions, and they've recruited extremely well. And there's a reason why they're always in the national championship game or discussion at least. So I think that it's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to bottle them up as best you possibly can, give them as many possible looks as you can, pressure him as best you can, because you can't forget that he can run. Trevor runs extremely well, and so even if you can apply pressure to him, you got to make sure that you can still get him on the ground because he's as big as some linebackers out there in our league. So all in all, it's going to be a tough and challenging day, but I do want to see how we can compete at that level.
When you're up against a team like that, and without revealing, your secrets or your plans, maybe even just taking us back to Alabama, what helps you get going? Do you need the defense to come out, get a stop? Do you want to get the ball first and put together a long possession? What helps you to set the tone to try to give yourself as best of a chance as possible against a team like that?
Against Alabama, I thought there was we got one first down, which was nice. Then I think we got another first down, which was nice. So whatever side of the ball that you end up on, just creating some sort of momentum. We were able to flip the field in the Alabama game. We got the ball somewhere around the 25, somewhere around there. We were able to flip the field all the way down and pin them at least, so that they had to drive the field to be able to get back. You got to have a few things go your way early on, and everything certainly went our way in the Alabama game. You force one or two turnovers in the first half. You be able to flip the field and force them to punt once or twice, and that's a pretty good win for you at that point. And then from there, we were able to hit a couple big plays on offense. We were able to get a long run here and there and be able to get into field goal range, which certainly does help. And it helps your momentum going into the locker room. The one thing that you can't have happen is what actually happened to us at Alabama. Was one thing spiraled and spun out of control for us. The turnover for a touchdown really hurt us, and really it was a good play. We had just gotten a little bit of penetration into the backfield, holding the ball a little bit haphazardly, and the ball popped out, and next thing you know, it's in the end zone of the other team. So I think all in all, is if you can get off to a good start, either side of the ball, make them, try to either flip the field on them or try to create them the punt or turnover would be phenomenal.
Do you think the limited capacity, does that make a difference at all? Do you think in a scenario like that your players would actually thrive off the big crowd? Do you think it limits their home field advantage? Will it not make a difference at all?
I don't know that it'll make a huge difference for us. I always think our kids enjoy the larger crowds. I certainly do. It's for me, my first one was that Florida State game, and that it was watching them come out, the pageantry of that. The second game was the South Carolina game, and South Carolina was just I think they were like about a 3 or 4 win team that year. But they still had about 60,000 fans. Their fans turned out, watching them come out of the thing, and and there's the mascot in the jail-looking thing, I guess the birdcage or whatever that is, playing the Odyssey, whatever. That was kind of neat. That was kind of cool. North Carolina, not as much. The crowd wasn't quite as big at North Carolina that day, and then of course Clemson. Clemson, when they come out, they come down the hill and everything. It's kind of neat. So something to experience. Alabama's a cool place. Something that our guys don't, and even myself don't ever have the opportunity to experience, I think is always helpful. So we always kind of enjoy those bigger crowds, I think.
Obviously, it wasn't an issue against Alabama. It wasn't an issue against Georgia Tech. But you do mention those cool experiences. Any concern with your players getting wrapped up into that and almost the big stage, the bright lights? So
in the first Clemson game, going back to 2017, I held them in the locker room when Clemson came running down, just to kind of make sure that wasn't the case at all. I don't know going forward. I don't know that makes a huge impact on them or not. I don't know that they get lost in it or not, especially a lot of those guys were at the Alabama game. A lot of those guys, they're kind of used to it at this point. So I think moving forward, it's probably not going to be as big of a deal for us.
Looking ahead to Saturday's game, the Citadel, this program, in the last 8 games against FBS teams, has rushed for over 250 yards in 6 of those, the 2 exceptions being 2017 against Clemson and then most recently against Jeff Scott, who came from Clemson. What was it like going up against Brent Venables, who, he's faced Georgia Tech in their option? Did he throw anything different at you? What was it like that you can recall in 2017 going up against his defense? Well,
yeah, so he had... if you watch him going back to 2014, he was a 4.3 high mic and fairly vanilla, right? Fairly straightforward 4.3. You fast forward that all the way to 2017, so he's played Georgia Tech a handful of times now. He's played Citadel the year before that we had gotten here. He played them at that time. So what had ended up happening was he started this evolution of how to play it, and you could tell that he's been practicing how to play it because Georgia Tech was in the league. And so we know that he's got like these 4 or 5 different defenses that he likes to put out there against you, and he knows what he's doing in every every single one of them. It's well thought out. It's a great game plan. I think he's got a crisp, clear idea of what he's doing. He runs his risks in certain areas, and they're controlled and modified at times. He gives you just enough looks. He won't give us the exact look that he gave Paul Johnson and Georgia Tech. Every single play, he'll change up one or two things on you. You've got to be dialed in. You've got to be geared up as a quarterback. Having Dominic here in 2017, he was able to kind of see and function. Later on in the game, we put JB in there. When Jordan got in there, it was a little bit of a different story. A new guy, young guy in that scenario could be very, very challenging for him, getting a lot of different and exotic looks. So hopefully Brandon will be able to adjust, identify, and correct whatever we do to be able to get the scheme correct for us.
We'll take one last time out, come back, and continue to get ready for Saturday's game. First, do want to tell you about Overhead Door, the original Overhead Door, the proud sponsors of the Citadel Bulldogs. Visit them online at overheaddoorcocharleston.com. That's the website, overheaddoorcocharleston.com, or you can even give them a call, 843-767-0028. Overhead Door, proud sponsor of the Citadel Bulldogs. We'll take one final break, come back, wrap things up tonight, and get ready for kickoff Saturday in the upstate against Clemson next on the Coaches Show, right here on the Citadel Sports Network.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005. I went to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once. She's the culprit that ripped our door off. 2,000-pound animal bumping into a steel door creates quite a bit of damage. I actually use the app, take pictures of it right there for USAA, and they take care of the rest. USAA is great about working with both active and separated military. I'm Josh Eilers, and I'm a USAA member for life.
Call USAA today to talk about your insurance needs.
Since 2002, the lottery has helped award more than 1 million scholarships. So when you play, you're not just taking a chance. You're also giving one.
Back here on the Coaches Show, one final segment tonight as we get ready for the game Saturday against Clemson. 4 o'clock kickoff. Coverage will begin 3 o'clock on the Citadel Radio Network with the Ashley Furniture Home Store Stadium Show. Looking forward to bringing it to you. Coach, as we get ready for that game Saturday, you know, this past Saturday against South Florida, national TV, ESPNU. This Saturday, playing the number 1 team in the country on the ACC network. You'll play Army on CBS Sports Network. So not only important to try to play some games in the fall as we've covered, but I'm sure also great for the exposure of this program to play these specific games.
Well, it's funny you say that because when we scheduled these games, I didn't know where they were going to be. So I was trying to motivate our players as best we possibly could. So I said, look, we're going to have the opportunity. We're going to have 3 games on national TV. Well, it turns out that we ended up having 2 in the ACC network, which is probably just as good enough for us. However, what ended up happening was the first game against USF was going to be on ESPN3, and I was like, oh boy, this is not going to look good. So when they moved the time back and they pushed us to a national televised game, I was like, well, this works out well for me now. At least say, well, we did what we said we were going to do, because we would typically play on ESPN3 ourselves if we were playing Furman or something. So, yeah. But it's good though. No matter what we feel like we're in an advantage because we are playing. We are one of those teams, and we're one of 16 teams, I think, or 15 teams teams. And really, of those 15 teams, I'm not really sure all those 15 are playing at this level. So that being said is, hey, we're at least playing, and we can use that. We can use that to help promote our program. It'll help us in recruiting. And it certainly will help us really just with our players, our guys that help us with the retention of our own guys.
So then along those lines, this game specifically, this was the one game that was on the original schedule. And for a little while, it looked like maybe this non-conference game couldn't happen. But how important was it to be able to keep this game against Clemson on this schedule?
So it was touch and go there. When the ACC came out with one, we're like, oh, there it is, South Carolina. See you later. So that was probably the biggest single blow at that time before everything else dropped out. And then, Mike came to me and said, just hold on. Then the rumor started to spread about the SEC going to a 10-game conference only. And we're like, ooh, we're back in this thing, baby. No, it's going to come down to us in Akron or something. And we're like, they got to take care of the in-state guys, right? Help us out a little bit. And then all of a sudden the MAC folded on us, and then boom, we're in, we're solid, and that really kind of drove everything else, right? We had one game on the schedule. Here we go. Now we had to go out and find 3 or 4 more games. Whatever we were going to do, let's go out and find them. And so when I told the players that the Clemson game, it wasn't fine. I mean, shoot, we were still. We still had to go through testing protocols, right? We still had to decide whether we could test 6 times in 2 weeks leading up to the game, which is what the ACC was requiring at the time, or still is requiring at this time, was shoot. When it came to me, I said, yeah, sure, we'll test 6 times. It don't matter to me. Well, we can do it or not as a school. It's probably a different story. But to their credit, to the administration's credit, to General Walters, we found a way. We got it done. And once again, we're just happy to be able to compete and be able to do it safely.
I've been out here on campus. I got my nose swabbed 4 times here in the last week. How have things gone from your point of view with the testing, and how the players have handled all of this that comes along with just trying to play a football game?
It was very concerning at the beginning, and when we didn't know, and as I told you, like all these protocols were coming out as you're starting camp, and you're trying to get guys here to, this is what we're trying to get done. This is what we're doing. There was nothing very hard and concrete. Once we found out, once the guys started to get here and we started the testing protocols and we're moving forward, things started to smooth out and things started to get a lot better as we went through our rough spots. We went through our, our guys that had to go to quarantine, our guys that, were in and out of practice at times. We had to go through all that. Since then, though, our guys have handled it extremely well. I think it takes a lot of our, the 18 to 22-year-olds, they have to see it before they believe it at times, and they have to see themselves doing it. And then when you get to here on campus, and every single person on this campus right now is wearing a mask, right? They're walking to class wearing a mask, and it's we're able to kind of keep everybody out of each other's rooms, which is difficult, right? I had to go over, and I would go over to camp. During camp, I would go over to 1st Battalion where all of our players were, and I would just see how are they living over there. It's Spartan to begin with over there. But it was really kind of neat. They were out in the galleries. They were sitting on their camp stools. A couple of guys were playing guitar out there, and they were singing. And I was like, you know what? This is kind of neat, They're making the best of a very difficult situation. Now, there are certainly guys in their room playing No Friendo or whatever that is, and they're playing their video games. I think just having those guys just they're going to remember this. They're going to remember the time that they lived in 1st Battalion together. They're going to remember the time that they went to camp together. It's going to be a memory, and some things will be really, really good about it, and some things will not be.
So how did you spend some of that quarantine time yourself? Sounds like you're not a video game guy. Did you sit down? Did you watch Tiger King? Did you come up with more trick plays? How did you spend some of that extra downtime?
I did watch Tiger King, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I'm ashamed to admit that. The fact that you brought that up, I will not lie. I did watch it. It was very intriguing, and I probably watched it in a matter of about 2 or 3 days myself. I have gone through Amazon Prime. I've gone through Netflix pretty good. I just finished up my series on Yellowstone on Paramount, which was a phenomenal. Can't wait for the next season to come out. But the one thing that I really did that I did was very, very productive was I painted the inside of my house.
Oh, wow.
I got that all done. My wife has been on me about getting that done. So I got that done. And then, of course, I had to do my typical duties of weeding through recruiting, going through the staff and everything else. But I'm fortunate enough. I live on campus, so I was able to come to work, even though nobody else was here. Of course, Andy was here, but nobody else was really here. I was able to operate, watch video. I had broken down quite a few games, and unfortunately, the season hasn't occurred yet. So I've got all the game plans sitting in a pile in a bunch of folders around my desk right now that have got to be executed at some point, hopefully. And then the one game that we've played so far, I had to prepare in about 2 or 3 weeks for it. Which is fine. You're just happy to prepare at that point. But Clemson was one of those games, and you have an opportunity to at least get this one going, too.
Absolutely. Good to have football back. Only have about 30 seconds, so briefly, I always end by asking you keys to the game. What are the keys to coming away with what would be a shocking victory, shock the world Saturday against Clemson?
All right, in order for us to shock the world on Saturday is we would have to play beyond a perfect game at that point. Things have got to go your way. And the one thing that I was disappointed on the defensive side of anything was just creating turnovers. We had opportunities. We had one that was almost out, but we need to get a couple of those out, and you need some shorter fields. And then you need to clean up all the offensive stuff on that you really didn't execute very well. And you need to be a little bit stingy with the ball.
Well, Coach, good to be back, even if it's only for 4 games here in the fall, and as always, appreciate the time and all the insight here tonight.
Fired up, Luke, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. That's obviously Coach Brent Thompson, head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, as we get ready for kickoff this Saturday. Citadel against the Clemson Tigers. Kickoff at 4 o'clock. Coverage will begin at 3 p.m. on the Citadel Sports Network, and the game will be broadcasted on the ACC Network this Saturday. Coverage begins at 3 on the Citadel Sports Network. For Coach Brent Thompson, I'm Luke Morrow. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you Saturday, or talk to you Saturday from Memorial Stadium against the Clemson Tigers here on the Citadel Sports Network.